You're listening to Unbridled with your host, Genevieve and Carly. Welcome to Unbridled.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Unbridled, and I'm your host, Genevieve.
And I'm Carly.
Today, we have a wonderful guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Margot Miller. I hail from upstate New York, but I'm currently in Georgia.
Cool.
I've been riding since before I could walk, so lots to talk about.
That's so exciting.
Awesome.
So I'm so excited to hear your story, Margot, because I've casually known you for years, like the Insta stalking and seen you at competition, but I've never really heard your background formally, like your story of how you got into mounted games, how you got into horseback riding. Have you been riding your whole life?
Yeah, so I have had a pony since I think before I was born. My mom rode growing up. She said she had horses until board cost more than her rent in New Jersey, and then kind of let that go until she was married and getting ready to have kids and got ponies. My sister rode before me. I joined Pony Club at 4, and that's really the beginning of Margot competing. I did dressage and games rally when I was 4, and then
Wow.
sister kind of caught the games bug first. She went to Pony Club Nationals in 2005, 2006, 2007. So I got to see the heyday of games while I was really little. I was small and cute enough that they would let me go into the barns even though it was Pony Club. And Karen Marcotte, who was always the HM judge for games, was an angel and really took me under her wing. And then I'd been competing regionally for that whole time, but really was just a Pony Club kid, did all of the disciplines. And then I ended up, I think, 6 years at Champs, 4 for games and 2 for show jumping.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so really Pony Club origin story. I think games was interesting for me because a lot of people did it full time and I did not do it full time.
Yeah.
And so that really played into I think my confidence as a kid, but also sort of how the perspective of the games world played out for me.
Well, did you focus more on eventing for a large period of time, or were you just kind of spread across the different disciplines in Pony Club?
I was the games kid of Western New York.
Okay.
But we didn't surprisingly enough, I think we always talk about how affordable mounted games is. It was cheaper, I think, for my family and more reasonable time-wise for my family.
Yeah.
For us to trailer to an event that they would do, all 3 phases in one day,
Yep.
and trailer back home than it was for us to, drive to Pennsylvania. Or actually, it was a lot more Maryland and Virginia-centric games was when I was really coming up into it. So it was just a farther trip.
Yeah.
I live right in the middle of central New York. So I'm 3 hours even from Kelsey Crowley. Actually grew up in Pony Club with Jake Bryson. So
Wow.
some people near us, but
That's
not a lot going on. Yeah.
And that's a really good point, and it keeps highlighting the need for growth in our organization, particularly because we have so much land mass in the United States here. But it's an affordable sport if it's near you. But you're right, it is expensive when you have to trailer 4, 8, 12 hours to get to a competition.
Yeah, and I think even Pony Club growing up, we were used to trailering into all of the rallies. So we'd leave at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to be at rallies that were farther away, but they were all one day tied to a trailer rally. It wasn't sort of the big thing that I feel some Pony Club stuff has become and some other things have become. So my family owned a restaurant and my dad is an engineer who worked out of state. My parents are together, but he worked out of state Monday through Thursday, and I have 2 siblings, and we all played 3 sports at school. So there was just a lot going on, and I think my mom could manage let's get the kids to a one-day show,
Yeah.
rather than let's spend a whole weekend away.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that highlights the needs for organizers that are doing stuff like one days locally to help build up the
Yeah.
sport, and also organizers in your region, right? Just continuing to push that, because organizing is really, really hard.
Yeah, for sure.
So your first pony.
Well, I had a lot of ponies, so
Your first meaningful pony.
my first meaningful pony was probably Jasper. I think there were like 2 solid ponies before that I had, but I think I started riding him probably when I was around 7-ish. He I don't actually know what he is. We always called him just like a little mutt pony. I actually have a picture because Krista was talking about ponies on the episode
Oh,
that came out yesterday, and I
yes,
was like,
please.
so this is my sister on Jasper. All the
Ah,
pictures I have of him were, like, not of me.
he's so
But anyway,
cute.
Yes.
he was adorable, but, like, no idea what he was. He has, like, a fjord mane that would never flop over in the winter. We'd just, like, let it grow, and it would be, like, above where I could see. Um, he's like a 12'2" little tank paint pony, that was stubborn as all get out. So at home, he wouldn't go. We would literally set up jumps in the middle of games just so that he would practice the game because he just wouldn't go. And then we'd get to a competition and he would like take off and we'd be like, don't really know how to ride that because he didn't go at home.
Did get to practice that one.
Yeah. But my mom always loves to tell the story that I was always scared to ride him. He would like rear and be a stinker with my sister. And then this girl, when it was like my time to move on to him, this girl that I was pretty competitive with, she was the only one the same age as me in Pony Club. My mom like paid her $10 to ride him in a lesson. And then I was like, Taylor's not going to ride my pony. I'm going to ride that pony. And then it was like history from there. Like we meshed like nothing else. Won a couple of championships.
That's
Really
crazy.
just like my total heart pony as a kid.
Aw.
How many
And I
years did
think
you ride him? At 12 too? That's a little
yeah,
guy.
Yeah.
yeah. So I rode him for championships in 2010, no, 2009 and 2010, and then was supposed to in 2011, but he was lame.
Aw.
Yeah, his weight limit was like 112 or 117 or something like that. My sister always tells stories of like spitting before weights and measures for champs, and I'm like, I don't think that was gonna get you there. But like that was like a huge stressor as a kid.
Yeah.
I was really lucky to have a friend that was a big supporter of our pony club that was a Connemara breeder, and she just kind of threw ponies at me for the rest of time. So I never took a rating on the same horse twice. I just kind of bopped from a bunch of different horses. Absolutely like loved that, but Jasper definitely gave me my start, which was awesome.
That is
Sweet.
so cool. And it is cool though that you went from a heart pony to still riding a lot of ponies after that versus just getting locked onto one pony and then maybe another.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. My family bought our trainer's farm when I was 10-ish, something like that. So I was really fortunate to have an indoor in the backyard,
Yeah.
have a cross country field in our backyard. My mom says they bought it for the view, which is awesome. We still have it and it's been for sale for like 8 years since I left
Nice.
home, and they're just like, okay, maybe some horse person will come buy it.
Aw.
But if anyone's looking to move to upstate New York, I got a hookup. But yeah, it was really, really fun to always have a different pony to ride. And I think that taught me so much. And especially, in the horse world, anything can go wrong at any moment. I remember one year I was trying to qualify for triathlon and I worked like all winter on my swimming and my running and my shooting so I could qualify. And pony came up lame like 4 days before and I jumped onto something else and then I got eliminated in the riding. And it
No.
was sad because like I
You worked so
qualified and
hard.
yeah, and like that was supposed to be the easy part.
That's so cool that you
But like
did that though. Like it's
yeah,
you should
riding
do
so many
this.
horses like teaches you so much about
Yeah.
like the feel and understanding and being adaptable to different horses.
Yeah. And can you, to triathlon, not everybody who has been, if you
Yeah.
haven't been in Pony Club, you probably don't know about the sport. Do you want to explain
Yeah,
it?
Let's talk about
yeah,
that.
it's based off of modern pentathlon, I believe, which is 5 different sports.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an Olympic sport, though I think I just read that they're not renewing it for
They aren't. I
2028.
know.
Oh
Um,
no.
Yeah, because a lot of the people do what I did and train in all of the things other than the riding, and that's not fair to the animals.
Yep.
Um, but tetrathlon is running a like foot cross country race, swimming, shooting an air gun at a target, and then riding. And the riding is a show jumping course that also has a gate that you have to open while mounted, and then a slip rail that you dismount in the middle of your show jumping course, walk through the slip rail, and then replace it and remount. So it's super fun. It's really difficult. I was not a runner or a swimmer, or a shooter, but that part I feel like you can kind of fudge.
How far did you have to swim, out of curiosity? Do you remember?
It depends on your age group. I think at that point I was like 13, 14, something like that. So I don't know. It was probably like 4 or 5 laps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still so incredible that, like, as a kid, you're like, "I wanna do this," and, like, that requires so many different skills for one person to have, to think you're gonna be
Yeah.
successful at that. That's really cool. I enjoyed swimming
And
growing
put them
up
all
and
together on
running.
the same day.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly, exactly. It's too cool.
yeah.
No, yeah. I never got the experience. I don't think our pony club was ever interested in it, but it's so cool to even, like you said, take that on like as a kid. We were just talking, so in a previous interview, a lot about like fitness of the rider alongside the fitness of the horse and being an athlete. Even if you're not going there necessarily to get jacked or get like fit quintessentially the way that you appear, but just to be functional enough to support your horse.
Mhm.
And I think Pony Club was really good in a way, encouraging you to look at like holistic fitness because they were, introducing sports like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We'll probably get to this at some point, but I stopped riding from like senior year of high school until between my junior and senior year of college, and watched a lot.
Mhm.
Um, Watched live streams of competitions, went and watched friends ride, watched lessons, did like tons of learning. And for a minute there, and maybe I'll come back to it at some point, I was really thinking about like I think Pony Club lacks the rider
You
fitness
think?
part.
Yeah.
I think Pony Club does. I'm a joint DC of a Pony Club now. I give a lot of credit to Pony Club in my everyday life as
Yeah.
well as my riding life, but I think that there is definitely some significant missing in like what we owe our horses, and also how your body, like I think there's a lot of talk about how your body influences the horse, but there's not a lot of understanding required on the personal level. There's a lot of understanding required in like how you and your horse work together and how you might solve something and your aids and things like that, but less so about like physically what you're doing in order
Mhm.
to
Like the
your ride
feel
and make the
and
best for the team. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the negative impact too if you're not investing in that with your horse,
Yeah.
Mhm.
That definitely is something I think, and we had just talked about this in a previous interview, about equestrian specific fitness, and that it is kind of broadly overlooked. I think people are like, oh, I need to get my horse to this place. But what are you doing too to help strengthen your capabilities besides just riding, which you should be doing? But
Yeah, there's some, like, new trendy stuff with TikTok. There are, like, a few, like, influencer type equestrian fitness people that, have programs and things like that. I think it's interesting to look at, like, how they're adapting stretching and things like that in order to, like, specifically fit in the saddle. Um, it's interesting. There's definitely a lot of room to explore.
no, and you're right too about them talking about kind of the end result of like, this is what it looks like when you and your horse are working together. Here's your hand, seat, and leg. But what about
Yeah,
the feel element and how you troubleshoot getting to that point? Like,
Mhm.
even if you think
yeah.
about balance, like just sitting in the trot with no stirrups or something, like let's say you lose your stirrups, like in games. I mean, you don't really have any coaching that gets you there until you've just experienced it,
You just have to
right?
do it. You just have to get those
Yeah.
reps in and, like, create the muscle memory and almost learn through it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for sure there's also something to be said for like I started riding before I could think, like before I had conscious thought. Um and it's really interesting like once I stepped away from like being in the saddle a lot and being at a further point in like personal maturity and growth and understanding of like, oh, like leg yield means like yielding from the leg. Like when I was 6 and somebody was teaching me to leg yield, I was just trying to do whatever. Like I was like, whatever it is that's supposed to happen, go down the long side, make it happen so they don't yell at me.
Yeah.
And then like like I don't think I actually understood what that meant until I was like way too old. But it's because like the way that it was described at the point that I was learning it like didn't click in my brain. And I think the intersection of those things, like understanding and being taught correctly,
Mhm.
have like very specific cross lines
Mhm.
that often get missed and get overlooked because you don't say something because you don't want to, you know, speak up in a lesson or you just don't understand. And then somebody said something, honestly, it was probably like 2 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, a leg yield is like yielding from your leg. And they were like, yeah, you're like 23 years old. And I was like, "What? I like know how to do it, but I didn't ever put that together. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny.
Oh, Jen,
Jen
I
is
think.
muted. She's gone. That's okay. I have a question for you, Margot. So my question is, you said you're involved in Pony Club still. Did you call yourself a DC?
Yeah, I'm a joint DC technically, but I run a local club here in Georgia now.
You run the club yourself. What does that involve?
Way too much work. No, it involves monthly meetings, so we do monthly unmounted and mounted meetings.
Okay.
I try as much as I can to bring as much diversity to those meetings as possible because I think that's a really strong part of Pony Club. So let's think of some things we've done this year. We've done a mock fox hunt.
Oh,
We've
cool.
done show jumping lessons. We've done cross country lessons. This past weekend, we did a dressage ride a test day. So we brought in a rated dressage judge. The kids rode their test and got feedback, and then rode their test again for a score. They do all sorts of different things unmounted wise. So we've done like anything from tack cleaning to this past week. The kids just presented. They each got assigned a horse sport to present and teach the rest of the kids about.
Yeah.
We're getting ready in November to do some stuff to learn about how to give back through the equestrian community. So
Awesome.
one of the alumni of the club that I runs a therapeutic riding center, and we're going to go and clean all of their tack and also do an equipment drive. So like used brushes and used tack and things that the therapeutic riding center needs donated. We're going to work to drum some of that stuff up to bring with us when we go to clean all their tack.
That's so great. Is all of this like volunteer? Do you get paid to do any of this, or like no?
Nope.
It's just because it's like
Yeah,
your
it's all
roots, or
volunteer. I think so. I moved to Atlanta 3 years ago, just about this year, and didn't know anybody. Had never been to Atlanta before I moved to Atlanta, and my work was still all virtual, and I was living in a high-rise apartment in downtown Atlanta, which I'm not a city girl, and was like really struggling. I didn't like it. I was scared. They're like people shooting people in parking garages, not for me. And I reached out. Actually, a girl that I did Pony Club with in New York had moved to the area like years before for college, and she was running a club. And she was like, hey, you should come horse management judge at some rallies. So ended up at eventing rally, mega rally, and games rally that year, judging, like really threw myself in. Met my current boyfriend at games rally, as well as the games group that I have been riding with now for
yay.
like 2.5 years. And yeah, it's a great way for community, but I also think it is so much work, but it's so much work that I like never even realized was happening behind the scenes when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
like that's the childhood that I want for other kids as well, is like weekends with their friends doing things that they love, and like to them it's all like effortless and just a good time. And that's because, you know, my mom put countless hours in, tons of other parents put countless hours in. I'm trying to clock my time now so I don't have to do it when my kids are in. We'll see how that goes.
That's awesome.
It's an insane. So Pony Club, not everybody is exposed to Pony Club, I find, particularly in like Mounted Games organizations. What's like the age bracket for being able to participate in Pony Club activities?
So I believe now you have to be 5 to join, and there is no longer an upper age limit. So when I started, it was 18, and then it moved to 21.
Mm-hmm.
Pony Club has kind of gone through the ebbs and flows that lots of riding organizations feel. They're definitely sort of in my prime time of Pony Club, the like mid 2010s. There was like some major low points, and they really are trying to bring everyone that they can in. I will say I was never a fan of the fact that it was adults also. I thought that the point of Pony Club was kind of the older kids are mentoring the younger kids. There's a lot of independence that's learned from that. There's also like so many life skills. I always say I pulled up to college and my mom and I were unloaded before anyone else had parked their cars. And I think that's like any horse show, but like specifically Pony Club, like everything has to be labeled, everything has to be exactly where it goes. You need it in and out as fast as possible because you have like 10 minutes while your parents are there to get stuff done that you can't get done yourself. And I think I've learned through being the DC of this Pony Club that at the local level, there's definitely a point to have the adult riders. Nick's mom is in our Pony Club, and like watching her do cross country schooling for the first time was like amazing. Like she's like, I just jumped that, and like riding with one of our instructors that's daughter is in the club, has a pretty severe disability, and then another Down syndrome girl was riding with them, and like they just were having an absolute ball. And it was like, you know, a 60-year-old woman and two children that are like finding their own on the back of a horse. And it's like really special. I think it gets complicated when the adults are competing against the kids 1-to-1 in a Pony Club competition, specifically because horse management plays such a big role. So in Pony Club, you have a riding score, a horse management score, and an overall score, but you're only actually like awarded based on overall and horse management. Your riding score doesn't matter without the horse management score.
Okay.
And so I think it's a little interesting when you have like a team of 8-year-olds riding against some 50-year-old women, and the 50-year-old women are nailing their tack cleaning and their organization, and you know, they're like running families, and these 8-year-olds are like, you know, trying to get it together for the first time. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting that they don't break them up. I haven't been involved in Pony Club in so long, and I know there's been so many changes because the cutoff was definitely 18 when I was in.
Yeah, I think the number they break them up if the numbers allow.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's still so your story, right? So we kind of went from the 12-2 pony to Connemara's to there was a break at college, and now you're a DC and Pony Club. Can you fill in the gaps before college?
I know.
What caused the break? I need the
Sure.
saga.
Yeah, so after Jasper, I did 2 years at Pony Club Champs on Jasper. Then I rode Anna Clater, who was like a huge fixture in the games community. All 3 of her kids went on the international exchanges. Chris Clater was our sort of like region coach and club coach growing up. They loaned me their daughter Tatiana's pony for a couple of years, and Tequila, he was awesome. He like really taught me the ropes of like canter vaulting and like doing all of the things. I did my senior games on him and my international tryout. I was the alternate for the international team in 2012 and then rode in 2013. That experience was amazing. I can't say enough good things about it.
Where did you ride?
I rode in Canada, which was a bummer because I was the alternate for Australia, but it was still amazing. I also was in Ontario, and I'm from upstate New York, so it was like literally 2.5 hours from my home.
That's so cool, though.
That's funny.
But it was still amazing. You're riding against, you know, it's 5 kids from 4 different countries, and each have a coach and a chaperone. Our coach was Ashley Desjardins.
Really?
Yeah. who rode with y'all earlier this year,
I
I
was gonna
think.
say that's the Ashley that was on the Pinto, Carly.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And it was actually really surreal being at that competition, and she was like yelling at me, and I was like having flashbacks to like the international
She has such a
competition.
distinct voice
Um,
too.
yes. And her mom was our chaperone, and her mom is also amazing. She was maybe 70 at the time that we went on the trip, and she did everything with us, from cliff jumping to trail riding to like all of the things.
Oh, so
So you
cool.
go on like 2.5 weeks of cultural exchange. They split you all up from your country. You like stay in host families with the kids from other countries, and then on the final day of the trip you compete as a country. And
That is
it
so
was so cool.
cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. And actually being the alternate, as sad as that was, the year that it happened was an incredible learning experience for me. Um, the kids on the team, it was like Rachel Cohn, Brian Atherholt, Mary Peabody Camp, Sarah Beth Hood, and then Cassandra Walschlegel, who is from my region.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they pushed me super hard, and like I was younger than all of them and definitely less games experienced than about half of them. And that was like really, it was super inspiring and
Yeah.
super like pivotal to my growth and my like understanding that it was okay to not make the team, and to like take a year and learn, and then come back and be like one of the strongest for the next year.
No, that's
Um,
huge. And I think, it's a good takeaway for people who are maybe trying out to ride internationally for the first time. If they do get selected as an alternate, just take what you can from the experience, like learn as much as you can.
yeah, for sure. I think like the training camps were super important. Um, and then yeah, just like the camaraderie and like understanding that like sometimes you're not a fit, and like I made such good friends with my team, and I would not have been as good of friends with the people on the team before because I was intimidated by them.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so did that, and then kind of decided that that was, well, I think I did come to an MGAA competition like pretty soon after that. Ashley flew, like I flew to Ashley's and came to a competition. Um, but then I was like, I don't really think I need to do games. Like I'm not dedicated to like the competing part of it enough
Mm-hmm.
to like want to get to the higher level of it. And I'd prefer to take something eventing and like really be able to go to like 15, 16 events a year and like
Yeah.
really improve over a year. So the same woman that had the Conemaras had an unrestarted off the track mare who was maybe 12 at that point, um who was 17.3
Ooh.
and a
Whew.
little bit feral. um, and I kind of restarted her from the beginning. Kathleen Hull was, again, like super pivotal in my development. She was like, I think that you can do this. And everyone else was like, this horse is going to kill you. And she and my mom were both kind of like, we'll get you to the lessons you need to get to. We'll put you in the places you need to be. And I evented her up through training level once my junior year of high school. And then
Wow.
I got really hurt.
Oh no.
So I had an adverse reaction to a rabies shot when I was getting ready to intern at the vet school at Cornell my senior year of high school, and like lost all feeling in one of my legs,
Oh my gosh.
and like couldn't really walk for like 6 weeks. Had, like some pretty intense, they like couldn't figure out if I had a stroke. I was like in for all sorts of testing. And then my mom did like tons and tons and tons of research and found out that it was like a transient stage of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is like
Yep.
adverse rabies reaction, autoimmune, something related.
Mm-hmm.
And like every once in a while I would overwork it and like lose feeling in my leg again, and then have to like ice and heat and rest, and then it would come back. So
Gosh.
it was actually quite interesting because that was at the very beginning of my senior year of high school. And I found like a year later that everyone else who had like had their sport all of high school had such a hard college transition because they were like losing something for
Yeah.
the first time. Like they didn't have, and luckily I was able to do that like with the support of my family and at home, and still like had horses at home.
Yeah.
And yeah, that made it a little easier.
That
But
is
that was
crazy though. Like I mean, there are people who suffer, like I have a chronic autoimmune disease that I deal with, and there are a lot of people that have different, health issues that just kind of, it can get you down sometimes. Like, how did you stay positive through it? Did you go through a period where it was like just really tough to handle?
I don't know. I always kind of stay like really busy. I
Yeah.
don't know if I just didn't ever process it,
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
it was like kind of okay. Like
Yeah.
between my junior and senior year of high school, I think that year my mom and I went to like 23 events. It was like the
It's crazy.
biggest year of my life. Yeah, we spent like so much time. And honestly, it probably couldn't have happened at a better time because
Yeah.
I was losing the love of riding
Mhm.
because I was competing all the time. And I really loved competing. I really loved the eventing team that I was competing with. But it was literally like compete, like get to a show Friday, dressage
Yeah.
Saturday, cross country Saturday, show jumping Sunday, drive home, get home late Sunday night, like school and rest the horse Monday, Tuesday, ride for prep Wednesday, pack the trailer Thursday, leave Friday. Like every week.
It's like burnout can occur even in something
Yeah.
you love if you just do
Right.
too much,
Yeah, and certainly like I think I loved eventing because it was, you were competing against yourself. You were like, you would have a different dressage judge every week, but like you could feel if the test was better. You would like, there was a lot of personal improvement and like personal improvement with your horse to measure. That really pushed me. But yeah, I think I was like at a point where it was too much competing.
Yeah.
Um and I I think it all just kind of happened with the flow of senior year. It like didn't hit me that hard.
Yeah.
And then I went away to college. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia, in Savannah. Um, and they had a Huntsy equitation team that I tried out for, but it like really was not my vibe. Like I am
Yeah.
a
Oh.
club eventer girl by nature. It was like a sorority where they wanted you to like sit pretty and not do anything on the horse. And
Yeah.
I was like, hey, but like, can I be effective? Like
Exactly.
what's the line here? And they were like, no. And then also because of like all of the eventing that I'd done, I would have had to ride at like the top level because the way that the points transfer,
Yeah.
Oh.
I would have literally had to come in and then ride advanced, having never done any Huntsy equitation before. And I
no.
was like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do this.
That's not fair.
So I like taught some pony club lessons just kind of for fun during college to some local kids. Actually, one of the moms had a pre St. George dressage horse that she let me sit on, and I learned so much from something that was made because I'd never sat on anything made before. It was all like kind of fudging my way through it, just like tons and tons and tons of lessons, but not on anything that knew what it was doing more than I did.
It's different when
So
the horse is the instructor.
yeah, it was really cool. And I kind of like traded lessons for her daughter to have that opportunity. And then in 2019, I went to study abroad in France, and one of my friends was getting married in Belgium later that year, but I was gonna like overstay my visa if I stayed to go to Belgium because France and Belgium are in the same visa territory.
Oh.
So somebody recommended that I look up woofing, which is Worldwide Opportunities on Farms, and you pay like $15 or $25 to basically do like a farm stay where you work. It's supposed to be like 18 hours a week in exchange for housing and food. And I like had it all set up to go work at this like little sheep farm with this cute little Irish family. And then my mom saw this ad for this place called Connemara Equestrian Escapes on the coast of Ireland. And I was like, I don't really want to ride. Like, and she was like, it's only 2 weeks. Like, just go. It looks like a really cool experience. Like, just go figure it out. So I we went to Italy between, she brought all my riding stuff over, and I was like, okay, guess I'm gonna go ride. And then ended up at this really, really cool farm outside of Galway in Ireland, where I decided to stay for like 5 months ish.
Oh my gosh.
So I went to
Wow.
Belgium for the wedding and then came back and worked the rest of the time. There were 2 girls from England that were there working, a girl from France, and I. And there were like 26 Connemara ponies
Oh my gosh.
between the ages of like 3 and 10. And this woman caught, who's amazing. We worked like 80 hours a week. It's light in Ireland until like 11 o'clock at night in the summer. So we were just working the whole time.
Wow.
But it was amazing. Like, we could not have asked for anything else. We lived, the 2 girls from England lived in a like pull behind RV camper, like on the barn. And then me and the girl from France lived in a mobile home from the 60s that had like plastic beds. I was planning to be there for 2 weeks. So I had like 4 sets of clothes. Like, I had 2 pairs of riding pants, a pair of boots, and like sneakers. And like, it literally got to a point where the lady was like, you can't wear that again. Like, put these clothes on. And I was like, okay, look, I was only supposed to be here for 2 weeks, and like, we didn't have a car. We didn't ever leave the farm. But it like threw me right back into riding, and especially into training, because
Yeah.
she bred all of her own ponies. And so the setup was kind of like, we were at her farm for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the beginning 3 days of the trip, and then we trailered out to the ocean for the middle days, and there was like a stable out by the ocean. And so then we'd go out there. So I'm also a photographer. I went to SCAD for photography. So I always went on the travel trip. They always took 2 of the 4, but I was always one of them, because the people really want pictures of themselves riding in the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like a life in transit 100% of the
Oh my
time,
gosh.
but it was amazing. And on the off days, we'd train the new ponies. It was really, really cool summer.
So did you ever think about bringing a Connemara home?
I have one there that's waiting for me.
Really?
Not me. He's not mine, but I think he would be mine if I went back. Everyone else hated him, and I loved him so much.
Aw.
Hightower, he's so cute. And we like jumped for his first time and took him to the ocean for his first time and did like all of the things. Yeah, it was really, really amazing. So all credit to Cot for getting me back into riding. Though I was like categorically against it.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Oh my gosh, what a story. I didn't know any of that.
That is so amazing. Like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, so
Yeah, I'm
cool.
always pushing people like 17, 18, 19. I'm like, go, like, I will get you a place to stay and a job. I have the person, let me know and go, because it is like, you get to see the world, you get to like work hard with your hands, you get to work with incredible horses. It is like a dream job. You're literally like leading trail rides of women like across the coast of Ireland. And it was really funny, because they're all not from the US, but all the women, of course, are like, 50 to 60-year-old American women who are like on their trip of a lifetime.
Yes.
So like, I would get like lumped in with the Americans, and I'm like, no, I'm one of you guys. I'm not one of these crazy old ladies.
That's
It
so
was
funny.
really, really fun.
And so how many years ago was that?
2019, so almost 5.
Wow.
So my plan was to go back after school, but I graduated in 2020, and as a tourism business, she couldn't sponsor my visa during COVID. So then I got a real person job, and now I'm in the throes of adulthood, where like, if I leave, then I lose health insurance, and
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely need to do like a week. Just go to Ireland and ride. Desperate to do
Yes,
that, like as an
for
adult,
sure.
for sure. Oh, that's so
Yeah, it's
cool.
amazing. And it's super interesting, like kind of off topic, but the people that go to ride, like, there's like a very strict criteria on like, you have to have either like been taking lessons for X amount of time or been riding for X amount of time, because you're on like 4 to 6 hour long trail
Wow.
rides. And there
Yeah.
will be people who are like, my friends wanted to go, so I just said yes to all the questions, and now I've never ridden a horse before, and I'm like dying on this. Crazy.
But it's kind of cool, right? It kind of like culls them out so that you actually get like decent riders, maybe. I've definitely
But
done
sometimes they
trails
just
here.
still come, and then like you're on the beach and the horse wants to lay down, and they're like getting laid down with, and you're like, no, like do something, like come on.
No.
I'm a 20-year-old girl, I can't like
I can't fix all your problems. That's
Wow.
crazy. All right, so 2019, then 2020, and now we're in 2023, and you're back out in the game scene. We've been seeing you up north here.
Yes.
Yes, I met the games group down here in Georgia in 2021 when I moved to Atlanta, and then got just like Courtney Cook is a wizard of getting people to come to things. And she was like, hey, you're riding in this show this weekend. And I'd literally been to her farm one time to ride. And I was like, okay, cool. So like showed up to a show, rode in it. And then like 2 weeks later, she was like, hey, I need someone to do all of the financial stuff for this show that I'm running next week. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll be there. And now that has turned into us starting our own LLC and organizing through MGAA, and also like riding. I started in the like Norman Patrick novice division back again, and then in January of 2022, she sort of coerced me, but I'm okay with it, into buying a really adorable pony that everyone was like, it was a pony that Coach Pam Johnson, who's in Florida, had for sale, and she was like, he'll never do games, he'll never do anything, he's the worst, we don't like him. Not that we don't like him. She loved him, but she did not think he was going to be good at anything in life. I think he had some kids with some really strong hands on him in probably not the right bit, and was not liking that. So I brought him up for a trial for like 30 days in January, and was told that I couldn't put a bit in his mouth until I bought him. And I don't know like why I thought that it was a good idea to still buy him, but I did. And then he has literally never set a foot wrong. He's like an angel pony. I rode him for a season, brought him up through open. He needed like some pretty good foundational like dressage work, and like learning how to, like not be on his forehand and turn and get his leads correct and do all of the things that you do to make riding more efficient, especially in games. I think it's easy to like muscle something through a turn, or to like, ride something incorrectly, but it's actually faster to do it the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, took him through all of that, and then kind of always bought him with the intention of being like a U18 pony. He's 13.3, and like I'm only 5'4", and like fairly medium build, but I like something a little bit bigger. I think I got really used to my 17.3 hand event horse that I could running vault in high school, and
wow.
and just like something with a little bit more substance. So I think
You need a
I
Toby.
always, yes, I always kind of like he'll be a perfect like U18 move up pony for a kid that's like sort of timid. He's not ever going to go any faster than you ask him to, but he does have like competitive open speed and competitive open skills. So it's pretty cool, pretty unique pony. So yeah, rode him for a season, and then decided that I was going to lease him out. Had a bad lease experience with someone who sounded really perfect on paper, and then it just like 1 minute his back wasn't good, and then his neck wasn't good, and then his teeth weren't good, and I was like, he actually has like never had a problem in the year and a half I've had him. So I think we're gonna I did like a 3-month trial lease, and
Like take
then
him back.
yeah, actually Bella was in North Carolina and he was in North Carolina, and when I told the lady that I was going to end the lease, like within the lease terms that I had written. She was like, okay, he'll be in the stall with 2 weeks worth of food for you to get him when you're up here. And I was like, my friend will be there tomorrow.
Oh
Like,
my
we're not
God.
doing that. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So he came back. Literally, Bella brought him down to a competition. He competed Norman Patrick with a kid that's pony went lame that weekend. Totally fine. No
Oh.
issue whatsoever. And then from that competition, went with my friend Kat down to Florida, and she has a really, really awesome equestrian team, pony club. She's kind of doing the same thing I'm doing, but in Florida. And her kids, they went to Pony Club Nationals with him this year. They're eventing him. They're show jumping him. They're bringing him to all of the things. He's seeing everything and like taking it the world on by storm.
so
which makes me
exciting.
so proud.
I've been looking at the pictures. I think you just shared pictures literally yesterday or something, so recent. And I was like, oh, he's so cute. Of course, I'm like obsessed with paints because of Remington, but he is so cute.
Yeah, he is like really an angel pony. He's so cute. And I love that he's getting experienced in all of the things because the market for a games pony isn't quite the market that it would be for an event pony or a jumper pony, but
Right.
also he's sort of something that like needs to keep his brain active. So it's cool that he's seeing all of the things and doing all of the things with them.
It's so
And yeah.
good. Like, I think so. I wanted to talk to you about how you develop games ponies or ponies in general, right? Conditioning. What is your focus? Because a lot of people get a games pony and they just sort of drill them on games, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily how you want to build the proper foundation. So it is good to do other disciplines.
Yeah, I think I've actually had that conversation quite a few times in the past couple of years because um, we're kind of at a booming amount of games growth down here in Georgia right now. And there are tons of ponies coming in, there are tons of kids coming in, and a lot of people that are just doing games. And a couple of times, like, Nick has said, like, oh, why? Like, I wonder why we can't just make one that's like Pepper and Tater, where like they're Courtney and Nick's open ponies from like 4 or 5 years ago when they were like really strong. And I'm like, well, also you were taking them to dressage shows and you were taking them eventing and you were doing all of the things on them because they were the only ponies that you had at your disposal. And now we've got like, 16, 17 games ponies in the mix and everyone's only doing games all the time. And that's, I think, I've seen in the kids that are doing Pony Club with us tons and tons of growth this year, not only in like confidence and competency, but also in like understanding and also in their social dynamics. Like Courtney's son Cash just turned 11 yesterday, actually, and he was like pretty much uninterested in games when I started. Uninterested in riding. I think actually when he introduced himself to me, he said, I'm really more of an indoor kid. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So, but he's now like, we had a little fun day fundraiser for our pony club on Sunday, and he cantered all of the games and only made a mistake in litter because he had never played litter before because he's just moving up to like that level. And it's amazing, but I think a lot of it is like seeing the other kids that you're with do all of the things. We did our little dressage thing for Pony Club the other day, and he was like talking to one of the girls at games practice and was like, so now that I've done intro A, do I move to intro B? And I'm like, well, your highest score was a 5 on intro A, so still in that one for a little while, but it's like the competition of it and the like rivalry in not just games, but all of the things are making them all better. Pony-wise, there are so many things, but I think like flatting and conditioning is so important. And like to me, funny enough, like from my comment earlier, I think yielding off the leg is like one of the biggest things for me when I'm teaching a new pony. I find myself like constantly being like, stop leaning on my leg, stop leaning on my leg. Like, you got to learn how to move laterally. I think definitely like horses that are on the forehand and like really heavy on the hand, it's really hard to carry a horse through a game. And so certainly like schooling that just in flat work and like I find hills to be super, super effective in
Huge.
both of those things, but especially being on the forehand and like really teaching them and working with them to come over their back so that they're working from the hind end and that they're like fully with your body so
Yeah.
that you're not at any point they're not falling into your hand is really important.
Right.
Um,
Keeping them light up front. And actually, I was
yeah,
watching a Western trainer recently that I thought was really interesting because you mentioned leg yielding. And I think, well, I don't know if I should put more focus there. Like I should. It makes more sense. Like my horses know how to yield, but I don't think about it strategically about like implementing it as a drill. And it's huge.
yeah,
And this Western trainer was saying something similar that think about getting your horse to yield and bend, but then also incorporate transitions while maintaining the bend. They were like,
yep,
we so often will yield and bend, and then we straighten them and then stop. But when you're doing something like barrel racing or mounted games where you're doing like your end turns, you're actually asking them to be coming through their body in this big bend and slow down, come back onto their
yeah.
haunches, totally different set of muscles.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I find like turn on the forehand and turn on the haunches to be like super, super important to me. Courtney just got a new horse that's to be Nick's open pony. Potentially he's like 15 hands and um he came off of the trailer from Florida. I think she bought him from like a Facebook ad and someone from Florida brought him up to a competition and he like rode him in the competition that weekend. He was fantastic. He is so level-headed and sweet, like a sort of narrow build quarter horse,
Hmm.
um, but very, very green. And I like got on him the week after the competition and I was like, okay, nobody touches him for a little while. We're gonna flat a whole lot. Nobody's gonna try and push him through any more games.
Yeah.
Um, and since that was August 19th, something like that. And I rode him at the fun day the other day and he was like phenomenal. Um, but it's so much of it is like not the games. It's, you know, coming back to a trot when I ask you to. It's
Yes.
like turning off of my leg correctly. It's picking up your front end. The only mishap that we had this past weekend was well, first of all, he's quite Western Brook, so as soon as you take your feet out of the stirrups, he slams on the brakes, which
Oh,
is a lot to untrain in a games pony that you want to go for a vault. And
yes.
also I like to work fairly alone. There's constantly tons of people at the farm, so I try and find times where I can ride by myself. And it's been really tricky to get him to like walk with me, run with me on the ground. So Saturday we did like a quick practice before, and I had someone pony him because I was like, I think I can vault him. I think he'll go for it if he does it. He was great. I got one vault on him Saturday. And then Sunday was just like, okay, I'm just going to try and send him in a race. And he like went perfectly for sock. And then we went to do run and ride. And he's just not quite off of his forehand enough yet. So I vaulted and I looked up and there was a kid coming at us into the lane. So I leaned to my left with a little bit of leg on, but not quite enough. And then I went over the other side.
Oh
Successfully landed the vault. But it's like just that like having to pick up at the end of a race that you like don't want to have to do. I can't carry you over the line
no.
every
Yeah.
time. You've got to like even by the end of the race, you need to be able to like sit back into your hind end and figure out how to not snowball. Um,
And I think like going
especially
into winter, it's a good time to start assessing where your horse is sitting with that, like those fundamentals about how they carry themselves, how they transition, how they move off of the different aids. This is the time now for us to start like putting the puzzle pieces together.
Perfect time to reassess,
Yeah.
when it's not game
we've
season
talked about.
necessarily.
It's just the beginning of game season down here.
Oh my
I
gosh, that's
know.
right. So
We're
jealous.
about to ramp up all over again.
That's
But
crazy.
Jealous.
We need to get some transport down to Florida, the Georgia, Florida area. The
I
problem is all
know.
of us have old trucks.
yeah,
It's hard to make it all the way down there. We really want to. Genevieve and I have talked about trying to figure out a way to get down there. And she has a truck that's, I think, 3 years older than mine. And mine has less miles on it, but that doesn't mean that I trust it to get me all the way down to Florida. So it's
Exactly.
just, yeah, gotta figure that
yeah.
that part out.
We drove up for whatever MA that was, MA3,
Was it?
something like that,
I think
at
so.
LaGrange.
Yes.
I don't know, one of the MAs, and yeah, even in a car without a trailer, it was a
It's
haul
a
back on
haul.
Sunday. We left after the Sunday session, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we were back, and
Oh my gosh.
work
Yeah.
in the morning and, all of the things. So it's certainly a haul, but it's so great to like be back riding with
Yeah.
the people that I rode with growing up. I mean, like the happenstance that like Bella was coming to a competition down here, didn't know that I was down here, and then like ended up like one of my now best friends that I've like reconnected with just through this. Adrian's been down a bunch of times. It's always
Yes.
so fantastic to learn from her. We
Yes.
actually brought her in for a pony club clinic on like fundamentals of riding,
So
which was
exciting. Yeah.
sick. Um yeah, like so much to learn and so many people to see and catch up with, which is always awesome.
Well, so when you're playing games specifically, we're in the competition field. What's your favorite race?
I love mug shuffle, and I
Really?
don't know why,
You
but I
don't.
love mug
I
shuffle.
was about to say why.
I don't I don't know. It I think I really like the races that I wasn't good at when I was a kid, that I've, like, figured out. I
Yeah.
love litter now. I used to hate litter. I could never figure it out. And, like, once I got it now, I'm like, "Ooh, I love litter because I can do it now." Like, it was so embarrassing when I was the only kid on the field trying to pick up all of the things, and yeah, I think I'm not a 3 mug person. Jen has inspired me to be schooling 3 mug, and it is super helpful. But I don't like it.
That's fair.
And I love vaulting races. Um,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
I did curse myself one time because I was laughing about Founders being our last race, and I then tore my knee playing Founders, and was like, "Okay, cool."
Oh,
I
you're
was like,
like,
"Haha, all of you are old and not gonna be able to do this," and then I blew
oh, that's
it.
terrible. So, any tips for people who want to get good at mug shuffle?
Ooh. I think, I would say get out of the saddle and create your own tempo. I think it's important to not get in your horse's way, but also I think we were talking about this a little bit on your live last week, is that, like, the things that I've learned about mug shuffle also translate really well to canter vaulting, which also took me a really, really long time to get as a kid. Is that you really have to get out of the rhythm of your horse, which feels foreign.
Mhm.
Um, you have to be able to like set yourself up and say, okay, I have to hit it here, 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 and here. And it doesn't matter what happens next to me or underneath me. Like, I have to stick to my plan,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is really weird, like in your 2 beat run with a 3 beat canter, like trying to figure out how to like not have those things match up, but it doesn't work. Like the physics of it doesn't work to try and vault from like a skip. Um,
Hmm.
so
No, that's
yeah,
really
I think
interesting. So, if somebody is trying to learn to vault for the first time, like what steps would you have them if you were schooling somebody? Like, how do you build that up?
I am very anti belly vaulting, like turning towards your horse. I know a lot of people say like you just have to get up the first few times,
Genevieve.
and like that once you start getting up, then it's fine. But I think staying parallel gives you so much momentum
Hmm.
that once you figure out your footwork, and I think everyone does it a little bit differently, but for me, it's like 1, 2, and then I jump, like plant a foot and jump, and then swing. Um, I think everyone does it a little bit
No, I'm
differently.
like counting it in my head. I'm like, okay, okay, we're gonna try that
It's like
tomorrow.
really all muscle memory at this point, and like I can feel from the jump whether it's gonna happen or not. Um, and it's interesting. I think in competition mode, it's like I kind of always make it happen, but in
At home.
um
It's
yeah, like at
no
home that doesn't
adrenaline.
always happen.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think like if you stay parallel, then your body has less friction, like there's less points of it going wrong. When you stay parallel, then you swing
Hmm.
and then you're over the other side. If you're turning, then you're losing momentum because you're creating a different motion than the swing in your body.
Okay.
I don't know if
No, that
that
makes
will
sense.
translate, but it's like
Yeah.
it slows down the momentum of your body when you turn towards your horse. One thing that Bella also has said as she's been helping some people down here learn to vault is like your head is the heaviest part of your body, especially with the giant helmet on. So once you get up, you want your head to at least be parallel with the horse, because as long as your head's staying up, most of your body will probably stay up. Um,
Oh.
and then I think sitting up, once you're on, you got to get balance quick. Like sit up quick, sit up tall, and like be strong in center.
Okay. Cool.
Those are
That's a
good
lot to take
advice.
away. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
got my
I'm like,
checklist here.
exactly. I'm like creating a little mental checklist right now. Okay.
Yep. And so teaching ponies to run with you, or a pony that's afraid when you jump off and you reapproach. How do you work on that one?
Yeah, I think I've been working on that one lately. The afraid when you jump off is a new one for me. I've never really had a pony like quite like this one, Red, that like literally stops dead in his tracks as
Mhm.
soon as your feet are out of the stirrups. I think schooling it mounted, so like if you set up something like sock where you have, some things down at the end that you're aiming to turn around,
Mhm.
keeping them moving around the turn is huge.
Mhm.
So I'll school like one ride, I will just school that turn.
Mhm.
Obviously like warming up first and all of that. But then like my focus for that ride will be, all right, mounted, we're gonna school this left hand turn around these socks. And then I'm gonna get off and I'm gonna walk him mounted and keep him moving. And
Yeah.
then I'll trot him mounted in hand around that turn. Then I'll get back on and I'll ride it more. And he knows that he never stops around the turn.
Mhm.
No matter where I am, if I get off, I'll get off at the other end of the ring and run all the way up and around the turn, because it's the getting off that makes him stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Still haven't quite gotten there, like in the race itself. If you get off there, he'll stop.
Yeah.
But he is at a point where once you get around the turn, once he's straight, you can send him like at the trot. Um, so
It's a
that's my approach
process.
so far. Um, yeah. And then
Was
like
he
run,
Western trained?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
'Cause that's my
Um,
experience. I had a horse, Halo, that Tyler Royer actually owns now, but, she's a standard old-fashioned quarter horse, and when I first got her,
yeah,
she had the same issue, and a lot of people, when they train horses for roping and stuff, when you cinch the rope, the horse is meant to go backwards as soon as you jump
yeah.
off, and so they, like, override that to the point where it took a long time to break it with her, and I actually would have somebody, like, chasing her with a whip and, like, keep her moving.
Yeah. Yeah, the going for the vault, like, I like to try and get them to run in hand with me at the shoulder first,
Mhm.
and sometimes the easiest way to do that is to have them ponied by another horse like
Yep.
you're playing hula hoop.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, really starts to encourage it, and it seems like once they understand that you're asking for that, they most of the time want to do what you're asking. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, I get it." Like, you don't want me to not move.
Just wait. Yeah.
Um
Mhm.
yeah, but then with that is like, do you also want a stirrup mount? Because then you need to be able to also have the command to stand
Yeah.
still, or at least stand still until you're got enough of your foot in the stirrup to get over the other side. Um,
Just like
yeah, which
fundamentals, a
is
lot of building blocks. Yeah, and you're right, you can't always do one thing because also you don't know if that pony is only gonna ride open for the rest of its life, you know? Am I gonna wanna
Right.
be able to sell it and have somebody that maybe goes and has kids and comes back and they need a pony to stand too?
Has to have adaptability.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was interesting that Krista was saying that her pony that she had, like, she couldn't get on with a mounting block. It had never seen a mounting block before, and like she came back from her injury and like
Yeah.
couldn't get on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just I think we need to be cognizant as trainers, like, or even as owners of your pony, like, you've got to set them up for success. And you don't know if you'll be there with them the rest of their lives. So, like, what skills can we expose them to that are going to be crucial for them being a good pony, like, later down the line? Like a mounting block.
Yeah, for sure.
Gosh. Gosh. So we are already over an hour. I see
Yeah.
Carly's itching over there.
No,
Any
it's okay.
closing thoughts, Margot? This has been so much fun.
Um, I don't know. Come down to Georgia. We run really fun competitions down
Yes.
here. We also try and hop up to as many things as we can. I definitely think there's tons of growth coming. I know
Yes.
it's interesting. We're trying to figure out as an organizer down here, like, how are we going to have enough people to field an O25 division? And I feel like in the North, it's kind of the opposite of that problem. We have 7 to 10 starter teams, like young teams. And then we've got like 7 people that are over 25 that are, being at a level that could be a competitive. So it's really interesting to see like the difference in geography and, who's succeeding at what areas and like learn from everyone. I'm super thankful for all of the advice and growth that has happened even in the past few months as we've been in this new endeavor. So yeah.
Yeah. So where are you advertising your competitions? If people want to go down south, who should they reach out to? Let's say they don't have a pony. They don't how can they get connected to come visit?
Yeah, so the Mounted Games Georgia Facebook group is kind of the hub for all things down here, and that sort of includes like North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Big hub here in Georgia and another big hub in Ocala. We do a winter series. I think it's going to be pairs this year, but don't quote me on that. We'll do Florida Horse Park in January and March and World Equestrian Center in April. And then we will be back up in Georgia for May through November-ish, hopefully. So Courtney is super eager to do one competition a month. I try and like every 6 weeks is about doable with also organizing Pony Club, but we're getting there.
That's so exciting that you have enough of a base though that you can do it once a month. So
That's gonna be so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome, and there are tons of ponies. We actually typically have run out of ponies because there are so many people that are wanting to come try. So if you're hoping to come down for something, definitely get in touch early. You can message Courtney or I, and we'll get in touch with the other one to figure out what we can do and for who. And, it's like, honestly, one of us will pick you up at the airport in Atlanta. We will do anything we can to get you all out here and riding. So
that's so exciting.
That's
We'll definitely
awesome.
have to coordinate and make something happen. I know Adrian's been pushing me. She's like, "Gotta get down." I'm like, "I need a truck." But
she'll just pick you up on the way.
I know that's what
She's
she was
got
like.
a
We could
20-hour
just make this
drive or
work.
something.
Seriously, I'm down for that.
No,
She's
we
so fun.
definitely will. And I think we should always be encouraging riders in different regions. Like, please reach out of your region. If you're comfortable and you have competitions that are right by you, like you should be traveling because everyone else is traveling too. It's the only way that we're going to promote growth and expose younger riders even to like different riders and different riding styles from different regions.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you so much for coming on to the show. We're at the top of an
Thank
hour
you.
here, but
Yes.
I definitely want to have you back someday too, so we can talk more about training, sourcing ponies. Like there's so many topics that we could go into.
I
We just
know.
got like
It
we
was
just
so
scratched the
cool
surface.
learning about your story and like you getting to go to other countries and live and train. That was just awesome. And then a little bit about how you would train the next games pony. So I think
Yeah.
we should bring you on again and talk more details on training because you seem to
Mhm.
have so much of a foundation. I want to pick your brain.
Absolutely. So fun.
Well, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe on our Facebook and our YouTube. We're trying to get up to 100 subscribers on our YouTube before we put ourselves out on the podcasting platforms because my brother says that YouTube is the second largest search engine. So we're going to
Okay,
make it
Tommy.
happen. Please keep sharing, like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Margot.
You're listening to Unbridled with your host, Genevieve and Carly. Welcome to Unbridled.